So the first episode of the Comeback Journey. This is exciting. It's something new. I want to get it started and get it going. And thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, dude. Legit. Of course.
Yeah.
We've been talking about this for a little while.
Right.
Yeah. I had this idea, and we stayed up. We were like talking on your balcony for like a solid fucking hour.
Yes.
Just like stoked on life and like these new projects that we wanted to work on.
Right.
This was one of them.
Right.
This is like a huge one for me, and you were pretty much just as excited as I was about it. So
yeah, you told me the idea and I was pumped. I was like, I want to do this. I want to get this going. So obviously we don't have like state-of-the-art equipment. This is like brand new. So for anyone watching, we apologize. Like this is kind of just rough. We're just starting off.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first video that I put on YouTube was like pretty much the same setup, but just me sitting here by myself.
Yeah,
without even a microphone.
Right.
So like we've upgraded. We got a microphone now.
Microphone. We got a tripod stand. We're good.
We have a second microphone.
Just not working right now.
Just yeah.
So the whole point of this podcast, Nick and I have been friends for a super long time, very long time, since like early high school days.
14 years.
14 years,
yeah.
And we both went through a lot together, and then we kind of branched off as friends for a while, and he went one way, I went the other way, and now we have come back together, and we're like reuniting our friendship, if you will. But both of us in a much better place in our lives, and we were actually just sitting at Rubio's talking about how like it's a good thing that we're not
like feeding off each other's bad habits.
Exactly. Because that's what we did before. We fed off each other's bad habits. Like, one of the perfect examples that we were talking about is we both went to Grossmont College together, and before every class, we would sit there and, like, smoke blunts in his car with the windows up, and then go to school and not remember a thing.
And here's the thing. We, like, consciously made the decision to sign up for all the same classes. So we would just go...
Yes. Like, knowing we both had self-destructive behaviors that fed off of each other.
Yeah, we just, it was a little rough. And then...
For sure.
We worked together at 2 different jobs.
Yes.
Subway.
Which I got fired from.
Yeah, for smoking weed, yeah. Although I told you to go out and pack a bowl, and then just so happened that our boss came up while he was out there and I wasn't.
Yeah. It was rough.
And then Mountain Mike's Pizza.
Yep.
And we lived together in our first apartment.
That's right. Yeah. 18 years old, man.
Yeah.
18, 19 years old.
I think, it was like January 2011.
Right.
19, yeah, just barely 19, yeah.
So it's a trip, because I was thinking the other day, like, speaking of going to school together, like, I vividly remember the time that we smoked a blunt in your car, went to stats class, and we had a final exam, or we had some kind of exam in that class, and I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. I didn't even know where to start. And you were really good at math, so, like, you knew what to do, but I didn't know what to do. So, like, the teacher came, passed out the test, it's on my desk, I'm looking at it, I'm looking at you, and I'm like, fuck, I don't get any of these questions. I start flipping through the entire pamphlet, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I just wrote my name in the top right corner and passed it in. And I went outside of class and waited for you, and you didn't take the fucking test either. You just passed it in, and we both bounced. And it was like, dude, like, to think back then, like, that's the way we were behaving, and that's the life we were living, to, like, where we are now, more financially stable and secure, like, that is the essence of the comeback journey, right? And, like, that's kind of why we're here, is because we want to talk to people about their failures in life, and we want to know where they began and how they got to where they are now, and all the trials and tribulations in between, and what's happened in their life that they've had to overcome that have been very challenging, and how they became who they are now, where they are now. And how they're successful now, like, depending on their state of life, right?
Yeah, and even, I don't, like, obviously the failures play a part, but I don't want to discount any, like, if somebody's done something amazing, and let's say they didn't have a particularly destructive past, right? They're just, going through the motions and just like a normal life, and then all of a sudden they decided to bet on themselves and create something amazing out of nothing, you know? Yeah. But it's crazy to think about, like, I would say, let's see, what year? Your daughter was born in 2015, right?
2015.
Yeah, okay,
August
so
18th, yeah. It's 23.
January, I want to say it was January 13th. I don't remember the specific date. Earlier that morning, I found out that my cousin, who grew up down the street from me, he was a few years older, but I found out that morning that he committed suicide. He shot himself. And so I spent like the day with my family, and then that night went and like got fucked up.
Yeah.
And I was like sitting outside of this house, and I get a phone call, and I was like,
outside of your cousin's house?
No. So my cousin lived in Texas.
Okay. So let's take it back a step. Like, what led up to that decision? Like, why did he decide to commit suicide? Do you know the backstory, or was it just
okay? So from what I understand, he was a paramedic,
right.
like his dad, my uncle.
Right.
He had just bought a house,
right,
and proposed to his girlfriend. So like, and he had just, I don't remember if he had just graduated from school or if he had just got accepted to the school that he wanted to go to further his education.
Right.
But from the outside looking in, everything was going great.
Right.
He had just proposed, the proposal was accepted, like, right. So he was now engaged. They right. just bought a house. And
so this is like supposed to be a joyous time in someone's life.
Right.
And from an outsider's perspective, everyone assumed that things were going super well for him.
Correct. So he had a falling out with my uncle.
Right. His dad.
Yeah.
The one that lives down the street from you.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So my uncle won these like a 4-pack of tickets on The Price is Right to like go to Disney World or somewhere in Florida.
Right.
And so he invited his son and my cousin and his girlfriend. So they went out, and for whatever they had this disagreement, right? And so my cousin like flew back to Texas and didn't want to talk to my uncle. My uncle had reached out multiple times. I talked to my uncle about this, and he was like, I reached out and I asked him if he wanted to do family therapy or counseling, like whatever. How can we mend this? You're my son. I love you, right? And just no response, no contact.
Okay.
And then he got a phone call from the police.
Yeah. How far in between was that argument and his decision to commit suicide?
6 months.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I think maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little less, but But so his mom lives in El Cajon.
Okay.
My cousin's mom.
Yeah.
My uncle's current wife is not his mom.
Yeah.
It's his stepmom. So his birth mom lives in El Cajon.
Yeah.
And
so to add some context, like we live in San Diego, specifically La Mesa or San Carlos area, and El Cajon is probably 15 minutes east, maybe a little less from where we live now. Mm-hmm. So everyone's family is very close to each other. We all live nearby. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, so she gets a phone call from her son,
right,
my cousin, and she's on the phone and hears the gunshot go off.
Oh, Jesus, dude.
Yeah. And so that, I'm sure, just wrecked her.
Yes.
I talked to her that I knew her a little bit. My dad and I had done some, we replaced her roof.
Right.
A couple years prior to that. So, like, I knew her. Like, we weren't related in any way.
Right.
But, like, I knew her. And so, yeah, she was
distraught,
to say the least, right? And my uncle was distraught in a completely different way because he never even got the chance to reconnect with his son before this happened.
Apologize for what had happened.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he had tried to,
right,
but my cousin wasn't given anything on his end, so.
Yeah.
So anyways, so that day I found out, and so I went and I was doing a bunch of coke and drinking, and I was sitting outside of a friend's house, just like I was sitting out there smoking a cigarette, like crying to myself, and you called me, and you were like, bro, you're gonna be an uncle. And I was like...
That was that day?
That was that day.
Holy shit, I had no idea.
Yeah,
dude.
like 8 hours
Holy
later.
shit, man.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So like the same day that I found out that my cousin had committed suicide, I also found out that you were having a baby.
Yeah.
And I was like now I'm fucking crying for a whole other reason. You know? Jesus.
Yeah. So dude, it's like the true epitome of that saying, like when one door closes, another opens, you know?
Yeah.
And that's like, that's literal manifestation of that saying within an 8-hour window.
Yeah.
Which is crazy as fuck.
Yeah.
And given the two lives have little connection, just you and I being friends.
Right.
And I never knew your cousin at all. But the fact that like there's literally a death and then announced that there will be a birth 8 hours later is like, it's amazing. Or conception, I should say.
Yeah.
It's amazing, man. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it was... Man. I don't know. I can't imagine. I don't have a kid.
Right.
You have a kid. Like, is it not like an emotional roller coaster?
Oh, it's entirely emotional roller coaster. And the craziest part about it is like, so you obviously know this, but when I announced that I was going to have a kid, a lot of the friends that I considered to be like true friends and close friends kind of abandoned me. They were just like, okay, this isn't a good idea. I don't think you're doing the right thing, and I think that I don't want to be friends with you anymore. Without saying that, it was like they distanced themselves from me for sure.
Right.
You know, like
some
close friends that we grew up with. You know, and so I recognized that at the time, and I was like, okay, like there's people that I won't be friends with anymore because of this decision. But at the same time, I have a responsibility to take care of a life. You know, I've created this life. It's not the child's fault that she's going to be born. And I have a responsibility to create and help mold and guide this new person to be a contributing, functioning member of society. Right. So at 23 years old, fuck, I was 22 at the time, I'm taking all this in.
You're like 100% responsible for this, for a life.
Yes. I'm about to be 100% responsible for life. My daughter was born when I was 23. So... a lot of people at 23 probably wouldn't step up to that scenario. Some would, I'm sure, but maybe most wouldn't. I'm just making an assumption there. But I decided to, and I stepped up, and it was the best thing I ever did. But yeah, to go back to your point, like it's an emotional roller coaster, and it's hectic, and it's challenging. But at the same time, I feel like what it did for me was it launched me in the right direction. Like it took the trajectory, the path that I was going down with the self-destructive behaviors, the drugs, the drinking, hanging out with the wrong people, and it by default eliminated all that immediately. It was like, okay, it was like it was supposed to happen, right? Like, it was like, okay, you're having a child now, none of these people are your friends anymore, but that's a good thing because those people fucking suck, you know? And it's like, they shouldn't have been your friends in the first place because they're exhibiting the same self-destructive behaviors that you have. Yeah. And it's not good for you or your life. And so now, this is what's going to happen, and you're going to have to start saving money and being responsible, not drinking on the weekends, acting like an adult, finding a better job, all of these things were now a responsibility, and it was just like a fucking smack in the face, like I had to do this, right? Yeah. So that's kind of like my comeback journey, if you will, is like having a daughter, right? Like that's what got me on track. Yeah. And that's what got me pointed in the right direction and just eliminated all these behaviors that I exhibited previously, and it paid dividends like tenfold, Yeah. And so everybody experiences, I guess my point is that everybody experiences these things in their own way, and everybody goes through their own challenges and whatever it might be, life throws different things at them. And it's how you handle it and how you respond to it that shows the person you are and shows your true character, Yeah, I agree. Yeah. It's, like, it sounds, what's the word I'm thinking of? Cliche to say that, like, there's like events in your life that will like shape you as a person moving forward in your future. And I used to just be like, whatever happens, like I'm fly by the seat of your pants. Right. Like Jack and I used to say this thing, our mutual friend Jack used to say, say that backwards. Stories over morals. And we would that was like our motto for a while. Like, I don't really care what I'm doing as long as I'm gonna have fun and I'm gonna have like an exciting story, so that I could portray the aura of somebody who's like enjoying this self-destructive
path of
or
life.
living a fun life, you know.
Right, but like fun on the outside, right?
Yeah.
But like even looking in from the outside, you could see that it was self-destructive.
Oh, of course. Yeah,
like, there's no way around it. Like if you're not like if you're 20-something years old and you're working a minimum wage job and selling blow and you have no money saved, you don't have a car, like you don't really have anything going on.
Yeah,
like,
those are very obvious signs that like your life is not headed in the right direction.
Right.
And it's funny you mentioned that because the lowest point I think that you and I hit together while I was in this with you, I just recall this so vividly because the next day I felt like such a piece of shit. We had done ecstasy together and we needed some weed so bad that we drove back to my house.
Oh, okay.
And
I remember this.
Yes. And we unlocked my car and we had no weed and no one to buy weed from. It was really early in the morning.
It was like 4 o'clock in the morning.
4 in the morning. And
on like a Wednesday.
We had a pipe with us. It was a random day in the week. Just pieces of shit. Anyway, so like we unlock my car. It's in front of my parents' house, so they obviously hear it being unlocked. Like my house is right there, you know. And we open the door and we start going through the carpet and picking out crumbs of weed on the carpet of my fucking car and packing it in a bowl and smoking it just so we could have some weed to smoke.
Okay, so like, not to like glorify these stories, but like just one more. This was late 2009, right after we graduated high school.
Yes.
And we were again doing ecstasy, and we came back to my mom's house. Kody pretty much lived there for like 6 months. He like spent the night every single night just so that we could like
do drugs.
Yeah. So we come back, and Kody at the time had this bright red Mustang GT.
Yes.
Everyone on the street knew whose car it was because it was at my house all the time.
Yeah.
So we're sitting in the car smoking, and it's like, again, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I had like, I don't know, a decent amount of weed, and I had a scale to weigh it. And I brought that all out to the car because in my head I wanted to be responsible and like keep track of the weed that I was smoking so that I wouldn't smoke all the weed because I was supposed to sell it, right?
Isn't that fucked up that our idea of responsibility at the time? Like that's our like level of responsibility. Like,
right.
Yeah.
And crazy. So we're sitting in there and we're smoking, and I see this car in the side mirror start coming down my street, and it's like 4 o'clock in the morning, and my street, it's not a through street. Like, you don't go down that street at that time unless you have a reason to. And I was like, we need to get out and like go through the side gate of the house right now. So we hop out of the car, smoke's pouring out of the car, and we're walking towards the gate to go into like through the side gate of my mom's house, and we hear over the megaphone, "Walk back to the car and put your fucking hands on the truck." And it's the cops. My next door neighbor had peeked through their blinds and called the cops and said that there were kids smoking narcotics in their car. And they sit us on the curb, and the cop has this flashlight like kind of swinging back and forth, and I'm just
staring at it.
Like my head is like following it. And Kody like nudges me. He's like, "Stop. Like control yourself right now." And they asked if anything was in the car. I said yes. They found the weed, and by some miracle did not find the scale. I don't know how they didn't find it. I didn't even know where it was.
Must have fell in the seat or something.
Yeah, something. But I got a ticket for possession of marijuana. This was like before it was legal in California. But that literally didn't faze me one bit.
Both of us.
Yeah. And like, I was just like, and by the end of it, there were like 4 cop cars, and all with their lights flashing at like 4 o'clock in the morning.
So keep in mind, this is literally right in front of his mom's house. Like her
we
bedroom window faces the street.
We were sitting on the curb.
And there's 4 cop cars. And actually, to tag on to that, like, they took my pipe. They found my pipe, my dragon pipe. That was a cool pipe.
The one from Mexico.
The one from Mexico.
Yeah.
They took that. They took our weed, which we had. So at the time, weed was illegal. And if you had more than an ounce on you, it was like
automatic intent
to sell, and so you would go to jail. And so the only reason we didn't have an ounce on us anymore, we just picked up an ounce, was because we smoked some of it. So we were right under an ounce. And so we're sitting on the curb. This all happens. The cop searches my entire vehicle. He pops my trunk. And the funniest part of this was I had gotten a book at the time from my girlfriend, ironically, and it said, like, how to reach her G-spot orgasm. And it was something we were reading together to, like, enhance our sex life at fucking, how old were we at this time? Like 18, 19. Yeah. And the cop grabs it and he's like, if you need to read this, you're doing something wrong. And he, like, throws it back in the trunk of my fucking car. And I just remember thinking, like, this asshole, like, fucking with 18-year-old kids, you know?
Man.
But anyway, to go back to what you said prior, like, I don't think that by us telling these stories, we're trying to glorify them. I think that it's putting in perspective some of the stuff that we've been through so people can relate to it. Like, maybe they've been pulled over by the cops in similar situations and thought they were fucked, whatever it might have been, you know? And not to mention, like, it probably didn't faze us because we have had interactions with the cops on almost every drug we've done. Mushrooms, acid, ecstasy, weed, like...
Yeah.
This was a recurring event.
Every single one.
Every single drug we did, we had an interaction with the cops.
Yeah.
And
this is not really anything new.
No, this was a recurring event, so it didn't phase us at the time, right? Yeah. But anyhow, I guess what I'm trying to say is that, like, these stories are not here to be glorified. They're here to understand our background and where we came from and how we got to where we are today.
Yeah.
Like, why we're better people today because of it, the things we learned, the perspective we gained, and the friendships that we lost for the better, and the friendships that we've now, like, rekindled and are maintaining for the better.
Right.
Yeah.
So Kody and I didn't hang out for a couple years. Mainly because I think, like, from my end, I was more concerned at the time with, like, keeping people around who were interested in, like, doing drugs, but who are also just slightly less productive members of society, so that I could feel better about myself. And I'd be like, okay, yeah, I'm doing this, but, like, they're not doing anything.
Right.
But I would, like, stay around them to feel better about myself. And if I was around somebody like Kody on a regular basis, he would have, like, challenged me and been like, what the fuck are you doing with your life?
Yeah. Well, especially because I was raising my daughter at the time.
Right.
So it's like,
all
that,
and so, like, I didn't really want to hear that because I knew he was right, or, like, he would have been right if he had said that.
Right.
And so I distanced myself pretty much from anybody who actually wanted to see me succeed in life.
Right. Or anybody who was doing better in life at the point. Like, not to put down
your
efforts, but, like, at that time, anyone who was doing better in life, it was like, fuck that.
Right.
I don't want to be near those people because they'll make me feel bad about myself.
Right.
But if I hang around people that do nothing and I do the bare minimum, then I look like a fucking god.
Right.
Like,
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just it's crazy to look back and to where I'm at now and to where you're at now, you know. We've been talking a lot lately about whether or not limitations are a thing, and what exactly we want to pursue, like, as far as, like, personal projects and, like, new things that we want to try, because we have no reason not to try them, right? So Kody has started a consulting business, right? And it's just something he was like, I'm gonna try it, see how it goes,
right?
And it's going well, right?
Yeah.
So I never even, like, obviously, like, I know your background and your, like, you have your degree, you have experience in this field, but, like, I never would have thought of that,
right?
Like,
Yeah. Well, I think that's what it came of it. Like, obviously, I worked at the bank for a while, hated that shit, but I learned a lot, right?
Right.
And then I went to this new company that I'm working at, and I like it. I like what I'm doing now, but I got my master's through them, and it taught me a lot about business, and I was like, oh, I can take this knowledge and apply it outside of here to help small businesses grow. I did it with the jiu-jitsu gym I was going to, and then, like, organic growth 4 clients later, it's like, oh shit, like, this is something that I can actually do, you know? And to touch back on your, like, thing of limitations, like, all of that is kind of crowning at this point in my life to where it's like, I want to try anything and everything.
Right.
That's why I did stand-up comedy. That's why I'm writing this like fucking emotional rap kind of thing that I want to do in front of people. It's like, I don't think that now I have any limitations. I feel like all of it is just my own perception, right? Like, that's all it is. You're on the other side of your fears is your greatness. It's what you can achieve and accomplish. And if you can get past those fears, then fuck, anything is possible, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm at now, and it's like, fuck it. I'm knocking down all barriers, all walls, no fear of failure. Like, let's get through this and see what happens, you know? It's, dude, you showed me this Russ song, and like, I think of this line every day. Love Russ, by the way. Fucking awesome. Great rapper.
He's savage. He's coming out with a self-help book also. Check it out.
It's actually out already. So
it's
legit.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And he has this line where he says, like, I'd rather deal with oh wells than what ifs.
Yeah.
And like, as soon as I heard that, bam, adopted that as my philosophy. Like, fuck it, dude. Balls fucking out. Let's do this, you know? Like, let's handle this, you know what I mean? Like, just toss it out there. If it fails, it fails. Like, you never truly lose. You either win or you learn, you know?
Right.
And that's it. Like, if you do perceive it as a loss, then learn something from it and move forward.
So this is better, you know? Something, so you and I had talked about how you had like we have a mutual friend, Jeremy,
Yes.
and you had approached him and you guys had like a phone conversation.
Right.
Jeremy's a fitness and nutrition coach, but he also has this mind, body, soul mastery mentorship program and a business mentorship program. And I had this idea for the comeback journey where originally I wanted it like, I'm going to start an apparel company and center it around like this idea that I have of exactly what we've been talking about. Like, you fucked up in whatever way, and you're making a comeback, right? So I wanted, like, I'm gonna make t-shirts and hoodies and, you know, try to make money, basically, right? And I hit up Jeremy and I said, can I like pick your brain for an hour, you know? And literally like sat right here on the phone with him, and I had a notepad and I was, you know, we were talking. And to touch on what you just said, he told me, he was like, look, if you're trying to do this, and this was before like I had the idea for the podcast, but he was like, if you're trying to build a brand in general, you got to be willing to put in at least like 5 years before you're gonna see it like working on its own,
or reaping any benefits,
right. Like, you might make a little bit of money, but as far as like a self-sustaining entity, minimum 5 years, right? Second, he told me, if you commit to this, there are no failures. You either find a way to make it work, or you find a way that it didn't work, and you try something else. And as long as you don't give up, you don't fail. 100%. And I was like, man, like, there's so many like thoughts like that I have, but I never correctly articulated them. And to hear somebody lay it out so simply, I was like, bro, you're right. Like, this is crazy. And so another person who I recently met.
So let me add something to that
go
real
ahead.
quick before you go. So, because Jeremy, shout out to Jay Griffith, by the way. This guy's fucking awesome. Like, if you have any issues going on in your life, please reach out to this guy. His mentorship program is phenomenal. He's an intelligent guy. He's got great things coming for him in the near future. But that's aside from the point. I was talking to him recently about a situation in my own life and some of the aspirations and dreams that I have. And he put it so simply for me as well. He was like, my thought on this is that you should start at the end and reverse engineer. So pretend as if you're already living in your dream, and then reverse engineer your life up to this point, and that'll give you the path on how to get there. And I was like, that's fucking brilliant. Like, if you start with where you want to be, and then you say, okay, these are the steps I need to take to get there, and this is where I'm at currently, that's fucking brilliant. It's brilliant, because then it's a clear path. You can set goals and advance towards those goals in the linear direction that gets you to where you want to be. And the entire time you practice manifestation, you practice meditation and journaling, and live in that dream the entire time. And eventually your subconscious just impresses it upon you, and it becomes your reality.
Right. You know? And that's huge. The self-conscious part.
Subconscious.
Yeah. It's like that's what's running things. Right. So like if you can reprogram that to where you're not constantly critical of yourself,
right,
and where you, like, even if you're on autopilot, you are making moves to set yourself up for success.
Yes.
This is, what is that? A flow state.
Yes.
Right? Like, if you can be in that mentality of being in a flow state, and, like, you're not, like, there's nothing about you, your vibe, your energy that is negative.
Yeah.
Like, this is like an uphill snowball.
Yep.
Of momentum.
Yeah.
And it's
life compounds. Like, the
right.
actions you take, they compound each other.
Yeah.
So here's an important point to that, is that, and this is stuff that you will study in school if any of you ever go into a master's program, this is something they'll teach you. So we as humans are primed. We are primed to believe certain things through what we see on TV, through marketing. We are all primed psychologically and subconsciously by marketing and television to believe a certain way and feel a certain way, right? And I'll give you an example of priming. So, and this ties into what I'm going to go into next. There was a study done, and I can't remember when or where, but it was done on young Black Americans, young African Americans. And they divided them into two groups. In the first group, they gave them an exam that asked them to identify their race before they took the exam. The second group, they gave them an exam and didn't ask them to identify their race before taking the exam. The students that took the exam and didn't identify their race did 50% better on their tests than the ones that did identify their race. And here's why. Because in society, we are primed to believe that African American is lesser, or to be a person in a minority group is lesser, right? And that priming creates implicit associations between who you are and reality that causes you to act a certain way and respond a certain way without you even knowing it. That's just one example of this. So we all have these implicit associations that we have no idea about. And a good way to find out what they are is go to the IAT test on Google, type that in. It's an implicit association test, and it'll give you a series of questions to answer, and it'll have you look at images, and you immediately click the word that associates with that image. It's super interesting, and you can learn a lot about yourself that way. Mm-hmm. My point is that in order to better understand yourself and the world around you, you have to learn how to unlearn these things.
Right.
You have to get to a point where these associations are no longer a part of your life, whether it be through like the way you were raised, the way people talked around you as you were growing up, the people you hung out with. All of these things mold and shape who you are and what you believe in life. But in reality, all of those beliefs then turn into the way you feel about life, the way you see life, whether you're positive, negative, whether you view certain people as bad or good. All of those things are implicitly associated with your priming growing up. And so an important part of adult development is learning how to get rid of that priming and start with a clean slate moving forward.
Yeah, and that's not an easy thing to do.
No.
That's probably one of the hardest things you will ever have to do if you choose to do it, right?
Yes.
And because it's basically going back and like you said, like a race against starting over.
Yes.
And forming new ideals and being able to like be objective about certain things and not just believe something because somebody tells you it.
Exactly.
Right? And
exactly.
It's easy to fall into that trap when, or I should say, it's easy to continue the cycle of being in that trap if you never attempt to get out of it.
Exactly.
But if you can, like, if you're aware of this issue, like you are, right? And you're the one who first explained this to me,
right?
This, what you just talked about. And I had already had these feelings of like, I don't think that like all these things and these thought patterns that I've had for the majority of my life, like I just don't believe them anymore, right? But it's what I was raised on. It's what, so it's really hard to let that go. And we're actually, this is something we were talking about at the gym earlier, about if I don't remember where I heard it, but if a snake is shedding its skin and it fails to shed its skin,
right,
most likely it's going to die,
right,
right? And that's similar to this in the fact that, like, if you want to elevate yourself and get to that next stage in life and progress, not just like you got a promotion or you're making more money or you bought a new house,
right.
like if
but
you want to developing,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
If you want to develop into the best person that you can possibly be,
yes.
you have to let go of
yes.
these old
yes.
thoughts and beliefs that are holding you back in the place that you once were.
Right. Right.
And if you can't just like stay in this twilight zone of like in between and you don't know, and like you're gonna have to make a decision. And if you don't make a decision, you're not gonna go anywhere.
Right. And that's the snake shedding its skin is a perfect example of that, because if you don't shed who you were previously, it's pretty much a death sentence. You will be that person for the rest of your life. That is who you will be. You are just bound to be that person. If you can't understand yourself, who you are, what drives you, what the things you want to change about yourself, if you don't know yourself that well and know that the things that you knew previously or learned in your earlier life may be false, or you don't develop your own opinions and perspectives and judgments about them as an adult, then you'll never move forward.
Right.
You'll never be able to progress. And the more people begin to challenge you on those things as you get older, you'll experience cognitive dissonance about those things, which is basically like a truth that you hold self-evident, something that you believe is true, even though it might not be true. And when someone challenges those beliefs, you experience cognitive dissonance, which is basically an emotional shutdown and a lack of willing to understand that person's perspective, because you hold something to be so strong to yourself that you won't believe it at all.
Right.
Like, let's say you were to tell me, like, let's use like the glass experiment with children, right? Like a water experiment with children. If you have a tall, slender glass, you fill it up with water, and then you have a short glass. You pour that water into this glass. The child's going to say, okay, well, this glass has more water because it's slender and taller, so it looks more full, right? But if I were to tell you that child that, like, no, it's the same amount of water, I'm just transferring the type of glass it's in. Well, that child doesn't have the ability to see that. They think that, no, this glass is
because it has the illusion of looking larger. It has the illusion of
looking larger, right? But to that child, it's self-evident that there's more water in the taller, skinnier glass. So if I tell him it's not, he's going to experience cognitive dissonance because he believes that it is.
Right.
Because cognitively,
nothing that you say
exactly,
is going to change
because
his mind.
cognitively he hasn't developed to that point, because what he sees is what he gets. And it's the same thing with adults. You know, they hold certain beliefs, and you can challenge those things, but if they're not willing to accept that belief or that perspective, then they stay there. They stay in that position.
This is so I've been in rehab twice, right? And the first, I went to the same place both times, and they offered, the first time I went, they offered two different routes you could take, right? One was the 12-step AA way, and the other was this SMART recovery, right? Self-management and recovery training.
Okay.
That's what it stands for. And
is that like you own your own destiny?
Right.
Yeah.
You are
guiding you. Yeah.
Right. So like, and there's, I chose the SMART recovery way, right? Because
was this the first time?
This was the first time, right? Because I had grown up, I went to Catholic school when I was, like, I went to church every Sunday till I was like 17.
Right.
I'll still go on occasion, like for, like, if my mom asked me to go on Easter or Christmas, like I'll go with her, you know, but I don't believe in it.
Right.
Really. I'm not really sure what I believe.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't think that if I have faith in a higher power or the universe or whatever this, you know, is, I don't think I need to go to church and sit there and sing songs and hold hands and you know, 100%. Recite these rituals. I just don't believe in that. Right. And so in the 12 steps, it talks about, you know, giving your power over to God. And I saw that and right away was turned off to the idea. And I was like, nope. Yeah. Because I don't, at that point I was like hardcore, no, God does not exist, right? But looking into it deeper, it's a God of your own understanding, right? That's what
Yes.
That's what the 12 steps is like. The higher power is a God of your understanding. It could be anything you want.
Right.
Your God could be the coaster sitting right there.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
like whatever you want and you believe, right? So the second time I went to rehab, I still didn't do the 12 steps route, and I still haven't. I've never done the 12 steps.
Right.
But I did a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy, and I changed the way that I thought and viewed the world.
Right.
And recognized that I can do whatever the fuck I want to do.
Right.
Whether that's destroy my life,
yes,
or have whatever life I dream of.
Yes.
Right? And you were talking like so passionately earlier, like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes ago about how there are no fucking limits and you're going to knock down every boundary, right? And I was like getting fired up inside.
Yeah.
But I'm not quite at that point where I'm like, I'm going to just like balls to the wall, do whatever the fuck I want. And like, I'm going to try this, and this, and this, because to this point, like I've been sober, today's the 19th?
Yes.
So in 4 days, it'll be 2.5 years.
Okay.
And while I've made significant progress in my life, I'm not quite to the point where I am ready to like, you know,
just power through things.
And I'm like taking these small steps to help myself get there, right? So like I showed you earlier today, like in my bedroom now, I have a vision board up on my wall. I have a dry erase board and I have a cork board, and I wrote down, you know, these goals that I wanted to reach within the next 6 to 12 months.
Right.
And the cork board is, well, right now it's just one picture, but there's going to be images, pictures, or like handwritten notes, memos, whatever, of things that like I want to acquire or accomplish, whether that's external or internal. And I think that like seeing it every day is gonna like get it into my head, like,
yes,
let's fucking go.
Well, because you're impressing it upon your subconscious, like we just talked about.
Right. Because I'm gonna wake up. I wake up and it's on the wall at the foot of my bed.
It's the first
I wake
thing
up, it's the first thing I see.
Yeah.
And
it's the same thing. Like when you meditate first thing in the morning, like all you're doing is setting that precedence for the day. You're understanding that like this could be my reality. This is my reality, and this is the way that I feel about my reality today. And I'm gonna start that way so that it maintains that path the entire time.
There's something that I was listening to this podcast a couple days ago, and it was somebody talking about how by eliminating unnecessary choices in your day-to-day life, it frees you up to pursue things more. And maybe like right off the top it doesn't seem that way, because like you're gonna, let's say you make the decision to wake up every morning at 5 a.m. and go for a 15-minute run and come back and meditate and then shower and go to work, right? But then someone might start thinking like, okay, but like now every morning I have to do this, and this, and this, and it's gonna stress you out. But like, okay, let's fast forward to where you do that every day for a month, and now it's a habit, and you don't even have to think about it, and maybe you wake up and while you're on that run, and while you're coming back before you meditate or shower or whatever, your mind is freed up to explore other options, right? And you can take that time to yourself, and like setting a routine and having discipline is crucial. You know, like there's days where like today I got off work early and there was like probably some things I could have done, but I took a nap right until you called me. And like nobody's perfect, you know, but
so what you're talking about here is something really interesting, because right now you're talking about building habits, right? And getting it to the point where it doesn't feel like a habit anymore, right? Like you just do it by nature, and now you have that time because you're so used to it. You have the time to think about other things, right?
Right.
So this is what is called the difference between something being explicitly declarative and implicitly procedural.
Yes.
So think about, let's say, someone learning to play an instrument or someone learning jujitsu, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jujitsu is a good example. So when you are first learning to do jujitsu, and I'm speaking from experience here, right? It's fucking hard, you know? But everything you do, you have to be declarative about it. It has to be explicit, right? It's not such a procedure yet that you can just do it in a flow state. You have to think like, okay, I need to grab his gi here, I need to grab here, I need to move like this, I need to do this next. And that's part of the problem. That's why you're not good at it yet, is because you're thinking about each of these steps.
Right, and you have to go through them one by one.
And you have to go through them one by one. But when things become implicit or procedural or implicitly procedural, that's when it's a procedure in your head and you just know what to do. I grab here, this. You don't even think about it. It's part of what you do now. Mm-hmm. In the same way when someone learns to play a violin, right? Like they have to strike here, then here, then here, and they think about each note and each strike, and everything they do at that point is explicitly declarative, and that's why it sounds like shit, because they don't know how to do it procedurally yet.
Right, it's not smooth.
Yeah, but once it becomes a procedure, it just glides. You know what to do, and now at this point. So it's the same thing with building a habit. You think like you have to put conscious thought and action to it at first.
Right.
To make it become a habit. And to the point, when it does become a habit, it just becomes a procedure. You do it every day without thinking about it. Mm-hmm. It's the easiest way to start eating healthy. It's the easiest way to build a routine for the gym. Like people think, oh my God, like I have to go to the gym today. Well, if they change their perspective and say like, oh, I get to go to the gym today, right? That creates that procedure.
Or you get to the point where you don't even, like neither of those good or bad cross your mind, and you're like, I'm going to the gym today.
Yeah.
Because today is a day.
There you go.
And I go
today
every
is a
day.
and I go to the gym every day.
Right.
Yeah. Like today is a day that ends in Y, and I go to the gym on days that end in Y.
Right.
You know? Which is every fucking day.
Right.
You know? And so at that point, yeah, right. So there was something else you mentioned that I really want to talk about. So you talked about going to cognitive behavioral therapy. Is that right? Did I say that right? Yeah. Okay, legit.
Okay, real quick before you get into that, please don't lose your train of
Yeah,
thought.
no,
This is not to knock the 12-step program in any way. I know a lot of people that have greatly benefited from it. It just wasn't for me.
Right.
And
that's important to distinguish between what you think you'll be good at and what you won't.
Yeah. Right. And that's not to say that like if I had done it, who knows?
Right.
You know? It could have been better than what I chose.
Right. Yeah.
But what I chose is what I chose.
Right.
And
that's an opportunity cost.
Yeah. Right. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
It's just it just is.
Right. So on that point, so what cognitive behavioral therapy does for you, and this is, you can learn about this in Robert Kegan's Adult Development Theory, the one I sent to you.
Yes.
Right? Fantastic. If you want to read something really good and you want to understand where you are developmentally in life, look up Robert Kegan's Adult Development Theory. Not only will you figure out where you are in life developmentally, you'll figure out how to get to the next step, and you'll also better understand the people around you, the way they respond to life and the way they act based on their level of development. And you can help them get to the next level of development once you understand. But one of the things it talks about is subject-object. And what this type of therapy will do for you is it makes you realize that you are not subject to things, and they then become object, right? Like, when I was in my youth, I thought that I was subject to my emotions. I thought there's no way I can control these, and I just feel them, and I have to fucking experience them.
Yeah, bro, you were a hothead.
I was a hothead. I was a fucking hothead, but I was also like, it was an extreme in every direction. If I was really happy, I was super happy. If I was really angry, I was very angry. If I was really sad, I was very sad.
Yeah.
I had no idea that I could view these things from the outside and turn them into objective things and not be subject to them anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's what that type of therapy will teach you, is how to view your habits objectively and not be subject to them. Like before, you thought like, this is just who I am as a person. I have to take these drugs to make myself feel better. I'm subject to these things because of my mental state or because of who I am as a person. Like, this is what I have to do to make myself feel better.
Well, here's the thing. Like the entire time that I was, for however, I don't know, 8-9 years that I was like on this
binge
shit show binge. Yeah. I knew the whole time that what I was doing was wrong.
Yeah. Right.
And I like recognized negativity that was like oozing out of me.
Right.
I just didn't know how to get around it. Right. I didn't have the tools accessible.
Yes.
To me, like internally, to be able to get myself out of that place. Right.
Yeah.
So that's why I chose initially to do this self-management and recovery training.
I think it's that you had the tools, you just didn't know how to use them.
Could be, yeah.
Like if I gave my daughter, 4 years old, a hammer, a wrench, a tape measure, and some nails and some wood, I could give her all the tools, but she doesn't know what the fuck to do with those. I have to teach her how to use those tools and what the purpose of each tool is.
Right.
So like you have all the tools inside of you already to do whatever the fuck you want. You just have to know how they work and how to apply them and how to use them, right?
Right.
Like everything exists within you internally already. Whatever the keys to success are already within you. You just have to know which key is the right key and how to use it and which door it fits in, you know? And that's it.
Shit,
like,
bro.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like everybody has the tools already, but you know, it's like I could look at the engine of a car and it's fucking taken apart and everything, and I'm like, okay, I can tell by all these pieces that that's an engine of a car. But I don't know how to fucking put it back together. I don't know how to use it because I'm not trained in that. I don't know. That's not my area of expertise, right? And it's the same thing. It's you have all these tools in front of you, but if you lay them out on a mat, it's like, okay, these are just a bunch of tools. Like, how do I use these? What goes with what? How does this fix that? How does this work with this? You don't know until you experience things in life. Then you're like, okay, this is a screwdriver, and I need a fucking screw, and I can screw this into this piece of wood and hold it to that wall.
Right. You're either going to learn through... there are probably other ways, but there's going to be two main ways, right? You're going to learn through experience, or you're going to learn by somebody showing you.
Exactly.
Or teaching you, right?
Yes.
And
which in itself is an experience.
Right.
Yeah.
So, damn, I lost my train of thought.
It's fine. So, I think what we're trying to say here is that, like, you will gain access to the things that you want in life as soon as you recognize that you're capable of doing so. And as soon as you recognize that everything you need to get to where you want to be, it already exists.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of you being conscious, aware of it, and manifesting it.
Yeah.
It's a matter of you pulling that shit out of inside of you and putting it out into the universe. And that's what doing things like meditating and journaling about your future state does for you. Is it projects all these things that you already know inside about yourself into your reality until that reality becomes your internal expression, your internal feeling. It's the same thing like with fucking comedy, you know? I was like, I could never do stand-up comedy. I like to speak in front of people, but I'm scared as fuck.
Right.
And then I was like, okay, I slowly started like listening to more and more comedy, and then I went to a few comedy shows, and then one of my friends from work did comedy, so now I had someone to relate with. And then I went to her comedy show, and she did it, she crushed it, and then I watched like 4 people suck dick at it. They were awful. And I was like, dude, if like I can get up there and do better than those people, and that's my baseline. Then I got up and I did it and I killed it, and I was like, fuck yeah, I can do this again. I just gotta write more funny shit, you know? But like all this time for years, I could have been doing this at like 16. I just didn't know how to use the tools. I didn't know they were there. I didn't have that life experience and exposure to put action behind it, you know? It was like I always knew I was a funny guy, like you know that. I was fucking always pretty funny, like but I didn't ever think like, oh, this is something I could turn into like a career or like a hobby or actually do this in front of people and make them laugh.
Right, it's more just like, oh, I'm hanging out with friends fucking around and people laugh.
But I'm like telling jokes and they're laughing, you know? Yeah. So anyway, that's the whole point here is that like it's within you. Not just you here sitting in front of me, but it's within everybody. It's literally a light inside of you that you have to allow to shine, you know? There's that quote by Marianne Williamson that I put on my Instagram the other day where it says like, how does it start off?
It is our light, not our darkness.
Exactly. That most frightens us. Yeah. Like you playing small does not serve the world. Like if you let your own light shine, you unconsciously allow others to let their own light shine. So if you project your greatness, how fucking beautiful is that? If you project your greatness into the universe and you are around people and they sense that, they then feel liberated to project their own greatness into the universe. Does that make sense?
It does.
Like we're gonna pull it up right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna read this.
I kind of feel like Jamie on Joe Rogan's podcast. Like Jamie, pull that up.
Okay, so the quote is, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give others permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
All right, so leave that up. I'm going to do this in a little bit of a different format, and I hope the camera can see me.
The camera can see you.
Because this is what I like to do, right?
Yeah.
You know this already.
Let me get out of here.
It's all right. Maybe we can end it on this. We'll see. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant or gorgeous or talented or fabulous? And in reality, actually, who are you not to be? Okay, your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that others around you won't feel insecure. We were all meant to shine, as children do. It is not in just some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give others permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Let that sink in. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
Make goosebumps, man. I love hearing you talk like that.
That's like one of the things that I want to do. I want to be a motivational speaker, and I feel like, who cares if that sucked, whatever. I don't give a shit. But like, I want to channel that energy that I feel, and I legitimately believe everything that I'm saying here, and that's part of it is portraying that passion.
That's why you related to that. That's why you posted it on your Instagram, because it's something that speaks to you on a level,
on a spiritual level,
right?
Yes,
on, like, so far beyond service that like, because I'm sure there are a lot of people that can read that or hear it and not, and they just don't. It doesn't resonate with them, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that they're not at that point, right? There's one, the Naval, what's his name?
Naval Ravikant.
Yeah. So he said this quote. I don't know if it was him originally that thought of it or if he was reciting it from somebody else, but he had this quote, and the quote was, "Every man has two lives, and the second begins when he realizes he has just one." And that speaks to my soul, right? Because I had this double life for so long, where like, to my family and my friends that I didn't want to corrupt, but like I still wanted them in my life, and like my girlfriends, whoever I was dating at the time, you know, I had this image to portray, right? But then as soon as I was away from them, I was like living this other life, right? And I feel like that quote can be interpreted two ways, right? It's, you're living this double life, and then you realize like you're gonna have to pick one, right? And then whichever one you pick, boom, there you go. Or you are living this life where you don't know what, like, you don't know which way is up, you don't know where you're going, you have little to no ambition, and then something sparks, right? Something sets off this internal momentum, and you're like, holy shit, this is what I need to do. This is what I'm meant to do. Right? And that's,
I only have one opportunity to do it. And that's the dichotomy of this, is like, you don't really, like, no one really has two lives. And that's what he's trying to say, is like, every man has two lives when he realizes he only has one life. Right? Like, you just live in any way you want until you realize, like, oh shit, this is it. This is my only chance. And to that point, there was something I read the other day that said, like, they interviewed people that were on their deathbeds. I think it was like 150 elderly people that were like moments away from their last breath, and asked them what their biggest regret was. And all of them, the consensus across all of it, the moral that they pulled from it was that people didn't regret the things they didn't do. I'm sorry, people didn't regret the things they did, they regretted the things that they didn't do.
Right.
It was everything that they didn't do that was haunted them, the things that they knew they should have done their whole lives but didn't do it. And that's what haunted them on their deathbeds. And if there's any better, there is no better case for action, except for the fact, and Gary Vee says this all the time, is that you are going to fucking die.
Right.
You are mortal. You will die one day. If anything should drive you, it's that fact. Les Brown has a great saying where he says, picture yourself on your deathbed, and the ghost of everything and every person you could have been is standing around you saying, we came to you for action. We came to you to bring us to light. We came to you to manifest us, and you didn't do it. And here you are now. All of the ghosts of the things that you could have been and could have done are standing around you saying these things to you. And then he goes on to say that the richest place in the entire world is not a corporation. It's not Bill Gates. The richest place in the entire world that you can go is a graveyard. Because that's where every idea has died, that wasn't acted on has died. That's where every great person that never acted on it has died. That's the richest place you can go. That people there that didn't manifest themselves in their dreams and whatever they wanted to do, and now they're fucking dead. And like, there's no better way to look at it than that. One day you will be a bag of bones, and anything that you are scared or embarrassed to do in this life now, in 100, 150 years, none of it will matter. No one will remember the time that you bombed on stage doing comedy. None of that shit will ever matter. So you might as well give this life the fucking most that you can. When you take that last breath, know that you gave it everything that you fucking had. Everything that you had. Let that last breath be worth it, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's my kind of the message that I wanted to get back here today is like, everybody fucks up. This is the comeback. Everybody fucks up in life, but make a decision to make that comeback.
Right.
And make a decision to do right, not only by yourself, but by your family, by your loved ones, by your friends, and by your community and the people around you. If you have something to give, you have an obligation to give it, bottom line, before you die.
Yeah. That's the thing is like, why do people have these like burning desires to all these like random, seemingly random things, like
right.
This, like somebody's has this fuel, this never-ending fuel to make pottery, right? Or to, which I love, by the way.
Yeah. And you're fucking good at it. You're really good at it.
Thank you. Or to write.
Yeah.
Murder mystery books, right?
They
they love it, right? And who I know off the top of my head, the majority of my family, just to start, loves murder mystery books, right? But like, what if nobody ever wrote a murder mystery book? Exactly. What if that just didn't exist?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
I don't know if my life would be affected because I wouldn't know the difference, right? But like, this famous author, or could have been famous author, right?
Yeah.
What if they had children, right? In this scenario where they did start writing these books, and they had children, and then their children grew up, and then their children grew up, and somewhere down the line, 2-3 generations, they developed a cure for cancer across the board, right? Well, what if this person who like thought, oh, like I really like writing, but like I can't do that, you know? I should just get like a job and work because that's what everyone else does, and this is just not like a rational thing to do, right? But on their first book tour, in this scenario where they did write, is where they met their wife, and that's how they had their kids.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yes.
But if they never did that, right, there's all these, and you, like, so you never know the alternative, right? So you might as well go for what the fuck you want.
Exactly.
Because you're never going to know the difference.
you could take that idea right there and extrapolate that across everything that you see every day.
Right.
Like, what if somebody never invented electricity? What if somebody never thought of a couch? What if somebody never thought TV? Any of the things that you see every day are just the origin of human imagination.
Yeah, right.
That's
everything. Everything that's man-made.
Literally everything.
Comes from
human
somebody
imagination.
thought of it.
Right. People no smarter than you and I have created the world around us that we live in.
Right.
You know? Just because someone got good grades in college doesn't mean they're going to be the next inventor or great person, right? Like, average people have thought of some of the greatest things, but you don't know if you are that person or have that idea until you try, you know, and you have to fail before you can actually figure out what it is that you will do, right? Like Elon Musk, or I can't remember who it was, but someone said, like, who invented PayPal? I don't remember. Do you know who invented PayPal?
I don't know.
Maybe it wasn't. I don't fucking know. But the guy who invented PayPal said, like, I invented these 5 things prior to that, and all of them failed, and my 5th invention was PayPal. And it's like, boom, that's it. You know, he just tried. He just tried every single time, and eventually he got it right. And he learned something from each of those failures, and like I just said, life compounds, right? Like, you learn from those failures, you change, tweak a little bit, try something else, fail, change, tweak a little bit, do that until you have a success.
Right, and you're just getting closer and closer.
And that's all it is.
And the only reason that ultimately that you'll fail is if you stop.
Exactly.
Otherwise...
Exactly. And yes, let's talk about that for a second. So I was talking to a friend at work the other day, and we both work like desk jobs, right? And he was like, man, I feel like I'm going to fucking be here forever. I feel like this is it, you know? And he was like really stressed out about it. And I told him, I was like, as long as you never say that again, as long as you never think like this is the end of the road for me, then you will win. You will win. But it's a matter of understanding that, like, this is not it for you. And those feelings are just feelings. But the moment you succumb to that feeling, the moment you say, like, fuck it, this is it for me, that's when you lose. That's when you lose. Because you can leave this job and you can go try other things and you can fail at those things, but none of those things are losses because you're working towards something that you want to be and want to do. But the moment you allow it to succumb you, and the moment you cave in and give into it and say, like, fuck it, this is it, this is where I'm going to be for the rest of my life, that's the moment you lose.
That is what scares me the most, dude, is I don't want, like, I work at Costco, right? And it's like, got voted 2017 best place to work.
Right.
Cool, bro, but like, I'm not trying to settle for $20-something an hour and, you know, 4 weeks paid vacation.
Well, take the money out of it. Like, that's not what you're passionate about. You don't give a fuck about working at Costco.
No. Right. Well, here's the thing, is like, I got that job right out of rehab because it was like, it was a secure job with health benefits, which I'd never had before, right? And I was like, okay, like, this is a step in the right direction, you know? But fuck no, I'm not passionate about retail.
Right, exactly.
Like, I'm not, no, absolutely not.
Right.
But while being there, I have learned a decent amount about myself and the way that, like, I interact with people on a daily basis, right? And I've learned more about myself in, like, leadership roles. And while I don't enjoy the work that I do, it has served a purpose for me, you know, leading up to this point, right? So I don't see myself continuing down that path. You know, I'm not going to work there forever, but it's, as of up to right now, like, it's served a purpose, right? And that purpose is like,
it's paying your bills.
Right, it's paying my bills, and like, I've networked a little bit with people there, and you know, try to capitalize on certain scenarios, but it's, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you mentioned something that I wanted to kind of touch on briefly. So you talked about, like, that being your work, and I think an important thing for people to understand is that, like, that is not your work. That is your job. Your work is what you put effort to and passion into outside of your job. That's your work. That's your work of art. That is what you are working to create.
That's a good distinction.
You have to separate the two. You go to a job every day for the basic life necessities, but that is not where your work exists. for some people, it is where your work exists, but for others, your work is outside of that, and you're simply going to a job. And it's important to distinguish between those two things. So, but anyhow, I think we've run the gamut of things to talk about.
We're still recording.
I think we've run the gamut of things to talk about.
Yeah.
We'll come to a close on this episode, and we'll pick it up here.
Yeah,
next
hopefully
time.
Next week.
We're
trying to make this a weekly thing.
We'll do one per week for sure.
Yeah.
So, this has been fun. If it sucked in any way, like, we expect that. This is the whole what we're talking about. Like, we expect to fail at this the first few times.
That's how I started my the first video I put up a few days ago.
Right.
I was like, the first few are gonna
it's
suck.
gonna suck, right? And so, we're gonna fail at this the first few times, but stick with us. We'll get better. We'll have better topics to stick to. It'll be a more diverse podcast with other people and things to discuss. So,
and if you wanna find me on social media, it's at _the comeback journey. And
mine is at Kody Lee Speaks. That's KODYLEE Speaks. And I keep it fucking real on there. So if you don't like harsh speaking about life, if you don't like reality thrown in your face, and you're gonna feel some kind of cognitive dissonance when I tell you need to get your fat ass off the fucking couch and do something, then don't go to my Instagram. But if you need that kick in the ass, then go to it. So
yeah, and my page is mainly just about enlightening people and helping people take like simple concepts and make them easier to swallow.
Yes.
Right. And if you want to be if you want to tell your story, or if you want to come on here and be a guest,
we'd love to have you.
Yeah,
honestly, anytime.
Hit either of us up and we'll make it happen.
Cool.
So thanks for listening, and
dude, legit.
Until next time.
All right, brother.
Cool.
Yeah.